Urban combat in Pokrovsk continues to escalate as Russian forces, capitalizing on their numerical advantage, have infiltrated multiple sectors of the city. Over a 48-hour period, Ukrainian defenders eliminated approximately 104 Russian soldiers and destroyed several enemy vehicles. Despite these tactical successes, the battles remain intense, and the overall situation is assessed as extremely difficult. Ukrainian journalist Tsaplienko reports that the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine has deployed special forces to reinforce the defense of Pokrovsk. This decision reflects a growing recognition that the circumstances in the city are approaching a critical threshold. According to the information shared, units operating under the direction of Kirilo Budanov have already coordinated with regular elements of the armed forces of Ukraine and commenced active combat tasks. These military intelligence specialists are focused on counter-sabotage operations and the targeted elimination of Russian groups that manage to penetrate the urban perimeter. Their efforts aim to prevent further Russian expansion within the city and stabilize defensive lines under severe pressure. One striking aspect of the current battle is the unprecedented density of unmanned aerial systems employed over Pokrovsk. FP-5 drones saturate the airspace, underscoring the technological evolution of the conflict and demonstrating how modern urban warfare is increasingly defined by reconnaissance and precision strike capabilities at close range. The fight for Pokrovsk has become a critical test of endurance, adaptation, and resilience as Ukrainian forces work to prevent the city from falling under Russian occupation. Russia outnumbers Ukrainian troops 8-1 in their offensive to capture the semi-surrounded city of Pokrovsk in eastern Donetsk Oblast. President Volodymyr Zelensky told journalists, "Russian troops have devoted such forces to the Pokrovsk sector that Ukraine cannot devote to one direction of the front, 1 to 8 people," Zelensky told journalists in a briefing. Ukrainian public broadcaster Suspiln reported. Imagine how many Russian forces are there, but at the same time, they have not achieved the planned result. After capturing Avdiivka, a longtime Ukrainian stronghold located over 40 kilometers, about 25 miles, southeast of Pokrovsk, in February 2024, Russian troops have gradually advanced toward Pokrovsk, once a key Ukrainian logistics hub tucked away in a relatively safe part of Donetsk Oblast. Russian troops have surrounded Pokrovsk from 3 sides, leaving about a 15-kilometer, about 9 miles, gap for the Ukrainian military to bring in troops and supplies, according to the Ukrainian open-source battlefield monitoring group Deep State. All the bridges into Pokrovsk were blown up by the Russian military, and the evacuation of the wounded is nearly an impossible task. Senior Lieutenant Natalia Stoiko, the head of medical services in the 5th Heavy Mechanized Brigade deployed in the Pokrovsk sector, said at the A Person in the Army conference held in Kiev in October. Stoiko said that the Ukrainian military lacks everything, from engineering equipment to engineers themselves who could build temporary wooden bridges to allow evacuations. Western military experts who previously spoke to the Kyiv Independent said it would be crucial for Ukraine to withdraw timely when it stops tactically making sense for its troops to hold on to the city despite the crippled logistic routes. Despite lacking manpower, the Ukrainian military has repeatedly held on to cities that Russia was about to occupy, resulting in a chaotic last-minute withdrawal where the wounded were often left behind. Pasi Paroinen at the Finland-based open-source analytical organization Blackbird Group said that his group believes that Ukraine should have withdrawn from Pokrovsk by around mid-summer, especially after Russian forces approached towns such as Rodinska, just north of the city. The more time passes, the more difficult it will be for the Ukrainians to pull out, Paroinen told the Kyiv Independent. Paroinen assessed that it could be weeks till Russia occupies most of Pokrovsk, but the time frame is difficult to predict because it depends on how long the Ukrainian military command would insist on holding on to it, and whether there would be Ukrainian counterattacks. But in practical terms, the situation is that the Russians are really now pushing into Pokrovsk in force, Paroinen said, stressing that they are now starting to gain a substantial hold over the city. The weather factors likely have helped Russia to ramp up its advance in the Pokrovsk sector, according to the expert. He elaborated that the long, heavy fogs days with suitable wind conditions that help provide coverage from drones have likely allowed Russian forces to use mechanized assaults and to push more aggressively into Pokrovsk with infantry. But Russia's eventual capture of Pokrovsk would not significantly impact the situation in other sectors of the front, since the Ukrainian military has had to stop using the city as a key logistic hub in late 2024 due to Russian troops' proximity to the city, according to Poroinen. Russia would, however, gain an important crossroads city that connects Dnipropetrovsk Oblast to the west to the Ukrainian strongholds in the northern parts of Donetsk Oblast. The Ukrainian military admitted that Russia has accumulated about 200 servicemen in Pokrovsk, infiltrating small infantry groups, reporting shooting and drone battles in the city. About 30 kilometers, 19 miles, north of Pokrovsk, Ukraine has been launching counterattacks to take back the swaths of territories Russia penetrated through in an August breach near the town of Dobropilya. The Ukrainian military said that it liberated the villages of Kucheriv Yar and Suketske over the past 10 days. Zelensky said at the same briefing with journalists that Ukrainian troops have captured 2,200 Russian soldiers over the 6 months in 2025 in the east, including in the Pokrovsk and Dobropilya sectors. Russian regional authorities have declared a state of emergency at the Belgorod Reservoir following a series of precision strikes that damaged the structure's bottom outlet and both sluice gates. The attacks disrupted the reservoir's integrity and caused a rapid 1-meter drop in water levels. Emergency teams are now attempting to block the outflow to prevent a continued release of water that could lead to widespread flooding downstream and the potential depletion of the reservoir itself. Newly released footage indicates that the remaining sluice gate is barely holding together, with specialists warning that another accurate strike could result in a complete structural collapse. Such a scenario would unleash a much larger volume of uncontrolled water, intensifying the consequences already developing along the Nezhegol River. Overnight, the Nezhegol exceeded its banks, flooding the embankment area in Shebekino and forcing local authorities to mobilize additional rescue and engineering personnel. The flow is steadily continuing southward, and hydrological projections suggest increasing complications for settlements located along the river's path. This expanding flood wave now poses a direct threat to Russian positions in the Vovchansk sector. The rising waters are beginning to undermine defensive layouts and supply routes, adding an additional operational hazard for Russian forces already engaged in heavy fighting in the region. Russian propagandists threaten to strike European countries with Oreshnik missiles, while Burevestnik cruise missiles are proposed for use in strikes against cities in the US. And Russia claims it wants peace while Ukraine and Europe want war.
Let's assume the worst-case scenario. We are working in complete isolation. So what?
Well, we will continue to be in conditions.
No, well, finally we will switch to other types of weapons. Finally, we will strike with full force. Finally, we will stop playing around and just wipe everything off the face of the earth and calm down.
Regarding armaments, this is indeed a very important thing, because if this is the hazel tree, this is what you insist on, it is indeed Paris, London, and everything else.
No, not Paris, London, but...
Well, 14,000 we can just like this and like that, boom, and over Kiev, fly around a few times and then...
It didn't come from us.
Trump responded to Putin's threats and the recent Burevestnik missile test by reminding that the U.S. has a nuclear submarine right off their coast. He said there's no need to fire missiles 8,000 miles when such assets are already in place, and called on Putin to end a war that should have lasted a week, not 4 years.
Russia said this week that they've tested a new missile that can go more than 8,000 miles. Is that saber-rattling for you? What is that?
They know we have a nuclear submarine, the greatest in the world, right off their shores. So, I mean, it doesn't have to go 8,000 miles. And they're not playing games with us. We're not playing games with them either. We test missiles all the time. But, you know, we do have a submarine, a nuclear submarine. We don't need to go 8,000 miles. And I don't think it's an appropriate thing for Putin to be saying either, by the way. He ought to get the war ended A war that should have taken 1 week is now in its soon 4th year. That's what you ought to do instead of testing missiles.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comments section. The membership link is in the description.
Rescues every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.